So I'll just kind of roll into it, kind of try to, there was the visual cues from the last presentation. I'm still kind of coming off that high, so bear with me as we kind of move forward. So, iNK Stories, I'll just kind of jump right into it. We're a studio based out of Brooklyn, New York, and we're really kind of a traditional writer's room. A writer's room with background like mine, which was I was at Rockstar Games for 6 years. I was the cinematic director on games like Grand Theft Auto, Max Payne. And then my partner is a visual anthropologist who comes from the documentary background. And together with our art director and our head of production, we decided to take a look at this medium of gaming and seeing what is actually powerful about that and what's not effective about that. So I'll just kind of give you a little side story. So I started off on GTA 3 and finished up with San Andreas, and then a whole bunch of other games. But once I left, I went to go make documentary films. And in between that, I wound up going on a trip back to Iran. I grew up in Iran, then moved to Canada, and then from Canada, I moved down to New York. When I was in Iran, I was up around this small town towards Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and they only had 2 PCs in the whole village. And I was about to go for a hike, and all these kids were outside, and they're like, "Oh, hey, can we get your autograph?" And I thought that was kind of weird, but I said, "Well, why don't you guys just come in?" And classic Persian hospitality, all of them came in, we made some tea, and we started talking. And there's this young woman, she was about 15 years old, and she turned around to me and said, "America must be an incredible place to live." And as an Iranian Canadian living in America during the time of Bush, I thought she was out of her mind. Why would she say something like that? And she was saying that when she plays Grand Theft Auto, she winds up getting in her car, picking the radio station that she wants to pick. She drives where she wants to. She goes to stores and she buys clothes that she wants to. She goes and she has fast food, and she goes and she buys different outfits and has these freedoms, these liberties that this engine, this game provides that she doesn't have in her real life. And from that, she understood that there's something to these freedom of choices and democracy that you have in the United States that you don't have in Iran. So I was very much affected by that and realized that we were actually, as an industry specifically focused on entertainment, we were underserving actually this incredible medium that could actually put people in the shoes of the others and actually provide us with a greater sense of compassion for one another and break down barriers of race and gender and religion and actually provide this digital equality, because it doesn't care what you look like or what you sound like or who you love. It just puts you in there and it transforms you to that place. So that became a huge focus for our studio, and we went out and did a project called 1979 Revolution. And 1979 Revolution is a choose your own adventure game that puts you on the streets of Iran, and you're 18 years old, and you get to kind of navigate the streets while navigating your own morality. And in doing so, you can take pictures and see that real life picture come to fruition. So we used all the tools that documentary filmmaking has, but actually brought it into games. So we met with this French photographer who was in Iran during that time, and he was able to give us his photos. So we gave that to the art team, and that became not just the inspiration, but what we specifically wanted to get correct in terms of our environments. I'm just going to jump right to it. After we all the concept artists, all the modelers, we had been working with a fair amount of traditional Western, primarily American kind of character modelers, and every character that they were making looked like one of the characters from Grand Theft Auto. And when I turned around to them and said, "Hey, these guys are supposed to be Iranian," one guy actually went ahead and just changed the palette, made him a little browner, and goes, "There you go." So for me, it was also part of this education that took place, which is like, we also need to educate the artists that are working with us to expand and to put aside maybe the way that they were educated and really kind of start washing everything up so that we can create this new language. So 1979 came out, and it was a pretty small indie game, and we got a ton of accolades, including being banned in Iran, and I got written up as a spy, and that's why I'm speaking to you here, because no one's going to hear about this, and I'm not really a public speaker. So as a result, we saw that it resonated with audiences. One of the things that you can do in the game is you can pray. And you can pray as a Muslim, and we translated that into English. And our biggest fans was this group called Game Church out of Utah, a group of Mormons. And they loved 1979. And they were like, and the reason was because they believed that there was a connection to God through this, like, we showed Islam as being spiritual. And that spirituality is exactly what they connected with. And that's what I grew up with in Iran. I'm not religious, but my grandmother was, and I respected that through her spirituality, I saw a sense of community. So we brought that into the game. And so when VR showed up, I was like, oh my God, this medium is incredible. I can't wait to kind of dive into it. But everything that was coming from the game world was a 360 shooter. Just shoot around. And quite honestly, that's worse than what you can do in a game. Because if you're in a game and you're doing a shooter, you actually get to go from here to there, and the landscape and the environment changes. But if you're in a 360, you're just kind of like turning around, things are attacking you. At some point, you just got to teleport to that next place. So you're actually just missing on some of that specialness, which is part of your journey. So we went the other way, and we did a project called Blindfold, which is a companion piece. And Blindfold, we again went about this in a documentary approach. We reached out and interviewed a number of journalists who had been forced into confessions and as a result in prison. So what we did was this became a companion piece. I didn't know anything about VR. I wanted to kind of just try it out there and also bring it all the way to the end, deliver it to the audiences, and see what's actually working and not working. That was kind of like one of the luxuries you have right now. So simple mechanic of nodding yes and no, in a 3D world, you're sitting down. So again, I think for me and for the work that we do, we don't look at the headset as a piece of equipment that you put on. We make the headset a part of the experience. So the reason it's called Blindfold is because that's exactly where that headset fit. And because you couldn't really communicate, and we didn't want to bring UI in front of your face to kind of take you out of the experience, we did what you would do if you had a gag in your mouth and someone's asking you questions. You nod yes and no. And in doing so, you have control of that narrative. And that narrative eventually, as you go through it, you wind up with two different endings. And that winds up becoming the choices that you make. And then after that's done, we put you in this massive room and we show, like we have up there, all the people that are presently serving life sentences or prison sentences for doing what they're supposed to do, which is reporting on what's taking place. And whether it's on a corrupt government or certain crimes that are being hidden, it allowed you to understand that this is actually how somebody who gets arrested and is forced to confess about something they didn't do. So we were lucky to have some Iranian journalists like Jason Razanian and Omayi Memarian, who works with the Human Rights Commission. These guys were actually in this prison, and we gave them this VR experience, and I was absolutely scared shitless. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to. This is what their life experience is like. Am I going to actually put them in there? And they came out, and then we spoke for a while, and this is what really kind of got me then thinking about VR was, I was thinking they were going to be like, oh, it was really accurate, or this was really accurate. And when they came back to me and they said was that they now have something that they could show their family that covers why they confessed. Because they didn't do it. They didn't do these crimes, but they confessed to it. And nobody who's actually ever been free, has never been in that situation, can understand why somebody would confess to something they didn't do. So it just started opening my eyes, the layers that we can start uncovering with these kind of experiences. So thanks to 1979 Blindfold, we were fortunate enough to meet our good friends from Google, who came in and said, hey, we want you guys to do something in the gaming world, but we've got, as I said, this one sector kind of covered. We wanted you guys to do what you're good at, which is narrative stories. So we did Firescape VR. Firescape VR, which is going to be here, is 3 episodes. They're each 20 minutes long, very much influenced by Hitchcock's Rear Window. You're sitting on your fire escape, you're looking across at the building, there's a young girl in there who's your friend, who asks you questions, and you can use the controller to send back emojis for your response. And then at the end of the first episode, the landlord who has decided that it's the time of Renaissance for Brooklyn and he's kicking out everybody who's got rent control, is murdered. Now you can click, all 7 apartments are simultaneously playing. And as you click into the different apartments, you see what's going on, but you can miss out on what's going on. So when you're asked who you think it is, and as the scenes kind of play out, every audience member has a different experience because they've been looking at different apartments. We took a lot of the traditional elements of what I'm familiar with motion capture, so we shot it all on motion capture. Somebody earlier on was talking about how so much of this is based on theater. We wouldn't do any cuts. So we would shoot the entire 20-minute episode in an apartment from beginning to end in that apartment. And as a director, working with actors and giving them that liberty to be able to do so was phenomenal. So let me just show you a quick little trailer. Right.
Is in the center of a renaissance, and Crown Heights is finally reaping the benefits.
You've been a bad girl. Please take away the pain and protect my hope and restore my marriage.
You need to get this crap out of here. Yes.
Let's just say he's a ruthless, nasty boy.
For the rest of your life, you'll be in pain, endless suffering, pain.
Does he have a hot date?
We need backup. We got a homicide.
I need your help. I'm so scared.
Alright, and hang on, I got it. There we go. Alright, so after Fire Escape, we again took some of those lessons and got approached to do a full, so that was on the mobile side, and I was itching to jump into some location-based VR. And we were approached by Starbreeze to try to create an experience that was really going to propel their headset, but also just VR to a whole new level. As I said, they had a lot of traditional games. We did the John Wick game, we did a Walking Dead game. So what do? I pitched my project about what it's like to be on the streets of Syria. And it was totally outside of their scope. And what we built was a 20 by 30 foot exhibit with 56 cameras that puts you on the streets of Syria. You have a backpack on, everything that you see, everything that you smell, everything that you touch, you'll feel. And you see the people in Syria, and what you do is you just stew for a while. You see them for who they are. You see them amongst the rubble that kids are still playing. You see that people are still greeting each other, kissing babies, turning on the music in their car when they hear that song. Father and daughter, hugging each other. People playing with dogs. And as you kind of become familiar and this becomes a part of you, we take it away. And when we take it away, a bomb falls. And the ground underneath you actually shakes. You get hit by wind and dust particles. You're forced to go inside to help the child that's been screaming. You'll feel the tactile wall as you go through it. You'll feel the fire on the right side. You'll go in, you'll walk across a part of the building that's been sheared off. And when you get to that room where the father is asking you to help save this child, you'll put your hand in a hole, and when you do, you'll actually feel another person's hand. You'll feel that young girl's hand, and you'll feel that bar, and you'll lift it up. And when she's saved, you sit there and you digest. And compared to any other experience that I've had, I've never seen anybody, the emotions come off the people. People were crying. We had to create an action, and it gave us the idea that we need to create these on and offboarding experiences for people. Taking your headset off after you've had something emotional is probably the coldest thing you could do to someone. So we created this room where people could sit and they could digest. We provided the Syrian refugees who we had interviewed, who became eventually our models were actually all based in New York, and they became our hosts. So this became like this incredible piece, and something that nobody ever talks about when it comes to location-based experiences in this world of digital experiences is that if it's sitting there, it might be sold out for 3 months, but it generates a much bigger conversation. And if you're working on something that's social, it allows that message that you're working on to get out there. In the digital world, and I know this from our gaming stuff, if you put something out in as a mobile game, if you're not getting traction and if you're not part of that editorial list in the first 2 weeks, you're falling off the abyss with all the other product that's out there. So when you create something that's actually a little bit more brick and mortar, you're leaving a bigger footprint and you're engaging that conversation. Take a look at Iñárritu's piece, Kani Arena, right? It was at LACMA for 9 months, sold out, every one of them sold out. And half the people I talked to never got to go to it, but they still talk about it and what that subject matter is. And I think that's something to kind of consider as we move forward. I'm going to show you guys quickly a little video. It's pretty nondescript, but I think it establishes the mood for what Hero is. It's coming. You're not seeing it. I'm seeing it out here.
Nana, mommy. Yellow guy, I need you upstairs.
There we go.
Nana, mommy. Yellow guy, I need you upstairs.
Please help me. My baby's trapped.
So all of this, quite honestly, is still very much, as a creator, something that you work on to try to get to figure out. We haven't figured it out. I did this because and got away with doing it the way that we did, and was successful enough to win the Storyscape Award at Tribeca because I actually didn't have anybody tell me what to do. So I got to take the risks that I wanted to. I knew we wanted to be authentic, so we found the appropriate people that were going to provide us with the information. But we also were able to push the boundaries by bringing in people that we usually don't in the gaming and story world get to interact with. Production designers, sets, guys who are actually building the sets, engineers, people who could, wire things up. We decided to join up with DTS because we wanted to create a VR experience that didn't require any headphones. So that's 32 channels of audio that you have around you, 2 massive subwoofers that'll send 120 decibels through your body. And the idea is, and this is the greatest compliment I think we've gotten for this project, was that we actually created and manifested a physical memory for those who experienced this. And you could see afterwards, after the offboarding was done, people had a colored wristband from the experience, and they tied a part of it onto the rebar on the wall that we had created in the post room. They'd walk through Sunday, so they'd walk through Tribeca, and they'd have eye contact with somebody else that was wearing that wristband. And they spoke a language that was just unique to that experience. And so, while there is all this talk about venture and economics and so forth, and a sense of cynicism because this stuff isn't turning around making huge dollars right now, the reality is that it's because we're still trying to figure out what this messaging is and how powerful it is. And once we actually get that figured out like we are now, the next step for us is how to democratize this. How is this not just going to sit in New York and LA, but it's going to be able to be in Oklahoma, so that people that suffered there from the bombing can actually then start generating a conversation with people who've actually had, suffered it. Let's get this down into Washington. Have members of Congress go through it, so we don't feel that they're making callous decisions when they randomly decide to bomb someone. This is the power of what we have with these experiences. And at some point, we're gonna find that sweet spot between monetization, between democratizing it, and getting these important stories. And it's gonna come also from working on projects like the Aliens game, because we learn from there. And this is the great part of being creative, is that You know, you used to do one so you can make some money, and then one which is the art thing that you kind of love. This is like the perfect medium because you're able to fill your, as my daughter says, you get to fill your cup and put some money in your wallet to take care of your daughter. So it's all there, and you know, we benefited from having somebody have faith in us, but we've also benefited from this technology. And I highly urge you guys, as we have at iNK Stories, is that it is first and foremost the story that you want to tell, the narrative that you tell. And now you've got these incredible tools, which, to be honest with you, nobody should tell you how you can and how you should use it. You will figure out what it is, and you'll stick to that best part of that message. And you know, that's pretty much it for Hero for us right now. Fire Escape's got 3 episodes. It's going to be showing in the other room as well. And I just want to thank you guys for having me. And I'm not sure if we have time for questions, but if not, we can